Unforgiveness. If you are a team leader or a business owner and you have unforgiveness, either personally or professionally, that can seriously disrupt your decision-making ability and how you're leading your teams and eventually your business. On this episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence, we are going to dive into unforgiveness, and I'm going to give you some tips to move through that, an action guide, and we're even going to dive into some juicy case studies. So stick around. If you don't believe that it's impacting your life in business, you're going to be surprised. Welcome to Unleash Your Audacious Confidence on Win-Win Women TV. This show is all about sharing the tips, tools, and techniques that will allow you to step boldly in the direction of your dreams despite your feelings, fears, or past failures, to imagine what's possible for yourself and live the life you deserve. Hey, well, welcome to this episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence here on Win-Win Women TV. And if you are watching us on YouTube, welcome to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like this video if you find it helpful, subscribe, and please leave a comment. I do read the comments and I respond personally to any of the comments that come in. So leave a comment if this resonated with you, or even if you didn't agree with what I shared, leave a comment. All right, so I'm Alicia Couri. I'm your host today on Unleash Your Audacious Confidence. And today's episode is a juicy one. Listen, when I started digging into this whole area, like last week we did a show, was amazing, and we talked about forgiveness and how forgiveness can lead to workplace excellence. Um, and so we wanted to continue that conversation a little bit more. And I started really digging into this whole idea of unforgiveness in the workplace, and when personal becomes professional and how it could impact how you operate. And I started remembering some clients that we had a while ago, and I thought, okay, I'm going to bring in some of those stories into this. Now, I know this is focused on women, so please take the lessons as a woman from this, but I am going to talk about a couple different male clients that we had a few years ago, and how this particular topic, uh, it worked for some and it didn't work for others. Because I've been recently reading this book, this amazing book. If you haven't read it yet, you need to get a copy. And I'm not pushing it because I'm getting anything from it. I just think that it is just a spectacular book. I'm halfway through, and the ahas, the bells, it's just been tremendous. It's called Let Them by Mel Robbins. And it is just a phenomenal, phenomenal book. And she says that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. Like, so when I talk about, especially one particular client that we had and showed some progress, but unfortunately was not willing to go deeper in the process, and we could only help so far. Like, we can help with their team, we can help with some of their operational things, but this leader had a lot of baggage that they were carrying around and was not willing to really deal with it. Instead was more of it's everybody else's problem. Like everybody else is the problem, not me. Everybody, I want to fire everybody every day. I want to fire everybody. They're incompetent. They're not doing what they need to be doing. They shouldn't be doing their. I need to replace everybody. Like that was the general conversation every day. Every day something was blowing up, and not really willing to look inside, look deeper inside, and understand that a lot of as the leader, a lot of the challenges and the issues was actually coming from him, not from the team. They were responding to a lot of the turmoil that he was bringing. And he had relationship issues, and those relationship issues, personal relationship issues, spilled over into business, and it was always a high tense situation at work. Every day was very tense. So, sometimes, unless you're willing to like look at some of these situations, we can give you the tools, we can share the information with you. But if you're not willing to go deeper with this, it's really not going to work for you. So that I wanted to start off with that one because that was really challenging for our team, for us to walk through because we knew that it would work, um, but it was just someone who just was unwilling to really go deeper and really do some self-examination, would rather point the finger at someone else. And when you're a leader that cannot be reflective and introspective and highly self-aware, there's a limitation to how far you can go and how far you can go with your team. And that's the sad part of it is like we have all the tools, right? We have so many tools, so many really great coaches and consultants out there have the tools to help you walk through your leadership journey. But if you're not willing to open up and really do the work, the internal work that it takes to overcome some of these things, you're going to always find yourself in challenges. So I really want to stress about our whole selves in this episode. And this might take a couple episodes to go through because I got a ton of notes that I've taken and I don't know how far I'm going to get through it in this episode, but stay tuned. We'll dive deeper into some more of this. So, when we're talking about our whole selves, I want you to recognize that you bring your whole self to work and you take your whole self back home. There's no leave stuff check. There was this thing in the 80s and 90s. You check your feelings at the door or you check whatever's going home at the door when you walk into this office. And that does not work. It does not work. You can't check your feelings at the door because what you're actually doing is suppressing your feelings. And those suppressed feelings go somewhere eventually. They don't just stay suppressed. So if you are having a personal issue, having a situation, it's going to come with you, whether you want it to or not. You can ignore it, you can push it down, you can stifle it, you can try to check it somewhere else. It is coming in the room with you everywhere you go. It needs to be dealt with, not ignored, not stifled. It needs to be processed. And so when we have issues that aren't processed, it does show up one way or the other, either in health issues, in relationship issues, or just in failure somewhere along the way. Mel Robbins, in one of the chapters, talks about her therapist told her that most adults are walking around their 8-year-old emotionally, 8 years old in adult-sized bodies, but their emotions and their reactions are of an 8-year-old child. And I've thought about that. I was like, oh my God. And as she started sharing the different examples of that, I was like, oh my God, that is so true. Like there are so many adults that don't know how to process their emotions and their feelings that they throw tantrums, they give you the silent treatment, they just blow up because they've not learned how to regulate their own emotions and their own feelings and how to actually process through those things to help to have a healthy response to something. And that was really telling. When I so I listen to audiobooks so much when I'm working out, when I'm walking, I listen to the audiobook. So, and then I get the actual book so I can highlight and underline stuff. So my copy is coming. I don't have it yet, but I'm going to start highlighting and underlining all these things that she's saying that's just amazing. But I want to walk through because we have an action guide for this to help you kind of walk through some of these steps. Because I go kind of fast in this because I only got 30 minutes. So I kind of race through, but I do start I we have started sharing these action guides so that you can go back and actually work through it if you like. If you want to, you can go to redcarpetceo.com/resource and you can download the action guide for this episode. It's always at the top of the page and it has the episode name on it. So this episode name was When Personal Becomes Professional: Forgiveness, Leadership, and Letting Go. So you can look for that action guide there. But one of the steps, as we always talk about our steps, is is to reflect, right? So when we start reflecting on our past behaviors, the past things that triggered us, the unforgiveness, who am I holding a grudge against? Why am I holding those grudges? When we start to reflect on those things, then we start to get answers. Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So you have to start looking backwards. If there's a repetition of behaviors, if there's something in your life that you don't want and you don't like having, and it keeps coming up and coming into your life over and over again, that's repeated behavior. That means there's a pattern. That means there is something that triggered that from the beginning. So you need to start reflecting on those things. Dr. Phil talks about looking for those defining moments at every decade of your life, like from 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31, and so on. You get it. So you start looking for those defining moments during those decades of your life that could have started that trigger. Because forgiveness is from way back in your past. And it's still triggering you today, and you have no clue, no idea. In fact, someone recently told me after we did the last show on forgiveness that their brother had started a business, but the problem was, and I want you to see this is a problem, right? Started a business, but had unforgiveness because of their parents' divorce. Their father had cheated on their mother, and so he has a belief from his childhood that everybody's going to cheat. And so the decisions that he makes in his business, this is why I said it impacts your decision making. It impacts how you make decisions in your business or as a leader. In his business, his decisions were colored by that experience. And he had a lack of trust and could not trust anyone to take care of business. And that goes back again to you blow everything up because you think nobody can be trusted, nobody can do what they're supposed to do. And that stems from you. That didn't stem from them. That stemmed from your inability to forgive that situation, move past it. So now you can build trust with someone else. If you think everybody's going to cheat, everybody's going to lie, everybody's going to steal from you, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start attracting that to yourself. And then you're like, you see, because our brain has this thing called the reticulating activating system. And when we have a belief, your brain goes into overdrive to prove that that's true. It's going to bring evidence. It's going to help you find evidence that that is true in your surroundings. You can believe me or not. You can look it up if you want, but your brain does conspire to make sure that what you believe you can find evidence for and you can see. And then you're like, see, it's what I've been saying all the time. That's true. It's going to happen. And look, it just happened. So when you are reflecting, think about those recurring feelings of anger, disappointment, hurt, sadness, frustration. Like, where are those coming from? What was that? What were those initial things that sparked or triggered those feelings? Because they sabotage your decisions. And then also, another thing to look out for is ruminating. If you keep replaying a scenario over and over and over in your mind, and you get every time you replay it, you get angrier and angrier, or you're just like sad or frustrated by it every time, and you just can't let it go. It just keeps playing and playing and playing. That's a sign that there's a level of unforgiveness in that situation because you can't let it go. You just can't let it go. So, in your reflection, I want you to really find the source of these things so that you can heal from it. And you may need counseling. You may need to see a therapist. You may need to get a coach. I'm just raising something up to the surface for you. This show is not meant to heal you. It's meant to help you recognize and find some level of comfort knowing that you're not alone. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who feels this way or who is dealing with this, because you're not. We all of us are dealing with it on some level. And so we want to help bubble things up to the surface, give you some action items, some things that can help you, but it's not meant to help heal you. That is a step that you need to take, either hiring a coach, reaching out to us, see how we can help, or getting a therapist, a counselor, or something of that nature. Okay. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We have coaches, executive coaches on our team that helps walk people through these opportunities as well to overcome certain things. So if you need a coach, if you need an executive coach, reach out to us. We do have coaches, really highly trained executive coaches on our team that work you through that. Won't be me. I help you with the consulting. I help map out a plan for you, but we have some really talented executive coaches, very credentialed coaches that can help walk you through these things. All right. So ruminating, and if you have those recurring feelings. So let me give you a story. I want to share this story with you, and I'm running out of time already. So there's this. I shared this story at when I spoke at a conference in Arizona, the Roads and Street Conference, and I talked about this project manager. It's a construction project manager, and he had a fight with his daughter. Big fight, blowout with his daughter. And on the way to school, she gets out of the car. She does, gives him the silent treatment all the way to school, gets out of the car, slams the car door, and he says, "I'll see you later. We'll finish this conversation later." And she turns to him and says like, "You think you know everything, but you don't know anything. I hate you." Slams the door and storms off. So he's already in a heightened state of, agitation. He's already agitated. Gets into work. So this is where I said you can't check it at the door, right? Gets into work, agitated. His boss is now asking him to go down, as soon as he walks in the door, go down to the construction site. There's a problem. I need you to go fix it immediately. Hasn't even put his stuff down. So he goes into his office, sits down, decides to make some phone calls to find out what the problem is before he leaves his desk to go down to the site, wants to gather some information. Let me get some background on what's going on. Let me find out what's happening. 15 minutes later, the boss comes into his office yelling and screaming at him because he hasn't left yet. He's still sitting here. Like, why are you still here? I told you, I need you to go down to the site ASAP. There's a problem. We need you to go there. He's like, yeah, well, I'm trying to gather some background information. So if I have to go solve or fix or whatever, I know what I'm walking into. He's like, I don't care. I need you to go now. Another level, right? Another level of frustration and fury, like just is happening to him. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out by sharing that incident is I'm Colby certified. So Colby is an assessment that helps people understand their innate, instinctive problem solving strengths. How do you innately, instinctively solve problems? How is your brain wired to do that? So Dan, his brain is wired for gathering information, gathering facts, as many facts as he can. He likes precision, he likes certainty, gathering as many facts as possible, developing a system, is what makes him such a great project manager, developing a system for solving that problem, those problems, having it laid out, and then tackling the problem physically. When his daughter yelled at him and say, you think you know everything, but you don't know anything, she was really attacking that part of his brain that is that fact gathering because he likes data and information. He needs, not likes, he needs to have that data and that information. And her just telling him that he doesn't know anything, it not only hits him in the ego, but it hits that part of him that he's a problem solver by gathering information. What do you mean I don't know nothing? So that hit him. And then the other part of that is getting to work now and not having the opportunity to do what his brain does best, which is gather information. It's like, no, I just want you to leave. Well, I'm leaving. I don't know what I'm walking into. I that someone who needs that information freezes if they're pushed into a situation where there's total uncertainty. And so that if Dan's boss understood that's how Dan's brain operated, would have given him the opportunity or at least gave him more information about what's happening so that that would help him prioritize and formulate what he needs to understand before he left to go down to the site. So there are so many things at play aside from forgiveness that's happening within our brains. And one of the things that Mel Robbins talks about is our emotions. She's like, do you know what an emotion actually is? Well, an emotion is a chemical response to some input. And that chemical response is a 6-second flood of chemicals, a flood of chemicals that goes into your brain in 6 seconds. But what happens is the reaction, the emotional reaction to the stories and the experiences that we've had over our lifetime, it happens so quickly, it's so subconscious that we react without thinking. And so when our brains are flooded with those chemicals based on our past tells us how to react. And before we know it, we're yelling and screaming at someone, we're slamming a car door at someone, we're acting out in some way instead of understanding, oh, I just got a rush of chemicals, endorphins, dopamine, all these things just flooded my entire system. I need to wait 6 seconds, take a deep breath, and then choose how I'm going to respond to this. And I'm talking about forgiveness because all of that requires some level of emotional intelligence that we can forgive situations when they happen because now we can, this is the second point, and I only have 5 minutes left. I don't know how that happened. But the second point is about reframing. When we can step into someone else's shoes, have a different frame of reference, different point of view. When we can use that frame of reference to understand someone else, then forgiveness comes a little easier. We did a show on empathy, and we're gonna tag it in our description. So you can go back and watch that show on empathy. And empathy is all about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but not just so that you can understand them, but so that you can do something differently. You can do something about that situation. Empathy is taking that next step of actually doing, not just feeling something for someone else, but doing something. And that doing is all around forgiveness. When you have empathy for someone else, you can forgive their mistakes, their oversights, their even just how their behavior, how they are. You can step into that role of empathy. And when you have empathy, if Dan's boss was operating in empathy, would have understood, okay, Dan needs XYZ. Let me either give him the space and the time to do it or let me get it for him. Because I know that's what Dan needs instead of yelling and screaming. It may be an urgent situation. Yes. Building on fire. You need to get down there. Well, say that. The building's on fire. You need to get down there. That's as much information as you need right now. Get down there and see what can be done. But without any information, that became a very difficult scenario for Dan to respond to. So, as we gain empathy for someone else or that situation, we're able to forgive, then we can rebuild those relationships. We can rebuild those relationships from a different perspective. We can look at it from a different perspective. Because what happens to when we get that flood of endorphins, of chemicals in our brain, and we react, we don't respond, we react uh, to a situation, and we may react incorrectly. But if we react to a situation, guess what happens? We then create a narrative or a story about that and about the person, about someone else or something else. We create our own point of view, our own narrative for it. Right or wrong, we have our own excuse for behaving the way we did, and we justify it. And what that does now is it closes you off from hearing anything else. My truth is the only truth that matters. I don't need to hear anything else from anybody else. That's why that step on empathy is so important, because it releases you from that my truth place. My story is, you don't know what they did to me. It takes you out of that mindset, and it helps you to actually now, okay, there's my version, there's their version, and somewhere in the middle there's what actually really truly happened, the truth. And maybe I can take myself out of my own feelings for a moment, put myself into their situation, maybe gain a little empathy, a little understanding. They may have still been wrong, but I can at least gain some understanding from that. Choose to forgive. Forgiveness is a choice, and we can go into on another episode and really talk about forgiveness. In fact, I did a show on forgiveness with my sister. That's a great show to watch. I'll link that in here too. I did the show on forgiveness last week. We can link that in the notes here too. But walking through forgiveness from that perspective now helps you rebuild yourself, your reputation, your sense of peace, and then you can move forward. Forgiveness is for you. It is for you. It's to help you move forward. Oh, so let me see. Uh, I'm gonna again let you know to go get that book. Let them. Let them is a great step to forgiveness as well, because there's two parts to that. It's let them, then let me. Let me choose. how I want to respond to this. Anyway, you need to get that book. Again, it's by Mel Robbins, so go check it out. I'll also link it down below. I have so many links. I have so many links to add to this episode for you guys. But go download the action guide to this. It's on redcarpetceo.com/resource so that you can walk through some of these alongside the show. As you listen to the show, you can work through it or work through it on your own. And with that, I am going to say to be bold, be brave, and every day do one thing to step out with audacious confidence. And today I'm going to encourage you that one thing is forgiveness, and start with yourself. I'll see you next time on another episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence. I'm Alicia Couri saying bye for now. Turnover. It's incredibly expensive for any organization, but especially those that are small and mid-size. If you're an organization and you're hiring, it's so important to get it right. You need to identify the right people for the right roles. Here at Audacious Concepts, Inc., we help you perfect your hiring process so you get it right every single time. Reach out to us at audaciousconceptsinc.com